Hey everybody, what's up? Startup Survival here, and I'm going to do a vid today about three really famous folding knives. Large size folders from three of my favorite companies. Of course, these are the Benchmade Griptilian, just the plain edge 154 cm satin finish, the Endura FFG, and the cold Steel Voyager, large size clip point. I think all of these knives compete with each other. They're all FRN handles, decent steel on the larger side for EDC or possibly a defensive knife, or just a heavy duty folder if you have a lot of work to do. They're all pretty high value, I think, for what they are, and they're all completely ambidextrous due to the nature of the lock and the fact that the pocket clip can be reversed. It really comes down to a question of personal preferences. There are a few important differences between them that I think are worth mentioning. But before I go on, let me just talk about the companies. Benchmade, I don't have a ton of experience with. I only own two knives. The Griptilian was my first one, and I held off Benchmade for a long time due to the pricing. I think Benchmade's pricing is a little high for what you get, especially when you see that these knives compete so strongly with more reasonably priced and extremely high value options. Everything Benchmade is made in the USA, so there is that to think about. And also they tend to use upper end materials, or at least very good quality materials, so that's something else to keep in mind. But I'm not a huge Benchmade person, but that axis lock makes the journey worthwhile, absolutely. Spyderco is by far my favorite knife company. I have more Spyderco knives than anything else, and the Endura was sort of purchased about halfway through the journey. I have maybe 7 different Spyderco knives or something, and I think the Endura was maybe my 3rd or 4th one that I bought. I love Spyderco because of the design, the ergonomics. I love how original they are and collectible. They offer so many different cool variations. And also they're super high value, and they offer something for every price point. If you look at like the Bird knives, for example, you can get those for less than $30. Then you go up to Tenacious, from there maybe the Delica Endura series, and then you can go into the premium stuff like Paramilitary 2, the Sage series, etc. And then the Sprint runs are like on another playing field altogether. But that's what's great about Spyderco, is they all have some things in common, like the spider hole and the pocket clip and stuff, but they offer enough variation that there's something there for everyone. Cold Steel, same thing with Benchmade. It took me a while to warm up to that company, and I have tried a lot of different manufacturers, and Cold Steel is one that I really like. I think after you try it, you're going to be happy with what you get. A lot of people are put off by the intense marketing they do, that like full proof or whatever it's called, absolute proof videos. I'm not a huge fan of those videos. I've looked at them from time to time, and they are kind of funny and stuff, and they definitely demonstrate the rigorous applications that some of their products can go through. But I wouldn't let that be your determination for whether to try them as a company. I think if you take an honest look at their products and really try some of the stuff, you will like it. It's hard use, and it's super high value. So that's why I like Cold Steel. But now let's talk about the steel and the blade shape of each of these knives and see how they compare against each other. So the Griptilian that I have here is Saber Ground 154 cm. It's the shortest of the 3 blades. I'll put it up against the other one so you can see here. So it's a little shorter than the Endura, and it's shorter still than the Voyager. But it's still a large size folder, I would say. 154 cm, I think it's a good steel. This is the only blade I think I have in this steel, and I would put it on par with VG10. I think a lot of people have a similar opinion. I like the fact that there's jimping on this blade. The grind is not my favorite. I prefer an FFG. But the blade shape, that nice classic drop point, I think is pretty cool. And yeah, I guess that's about it really. It's got sharp edges on the back too. So if you wanted to do like fire steel on this, I think you would probably be well served. But there's probably better knives out there for that sort of bushcrafting task. But it's pretty cool. Okay. Spyderco, it's of course FFG, more of a spear point blade. It's a little longer than the grip, like I said. VG10 steel, which I think is high value and good quality. That being said though, and I'm going to talk about this more with AUS 8, I'm not like a steel snob. I think that the difference between steels is not all it's cracked up to be. I think it adds a lot of cost when you throw in a premium steel, and you don't get a ton of payback for that. I personally, I can sharpen my knives okay. I've got a good system with the sharp maker, and I actually don't mind sharpening my knives. No matter what steel you have, even S30V or, you know, something better than that if there is, it's going to get dull quickly. You know, you'll be able to maintain a working edge for perhaps a long time. Maybe that's where the difference really comes in. But they all lose that super shaving sharp, paper cutting sharpness pretty fast. VG10, good steel though. I've been happy with it. AUS 8. A lot of people consider AUS 8 to be sort of a garbage steel, or maybe like a working man steel or something like that. And I hear comparisons to the 8CR13 MOV. I don't know about that. I would put it closer to VG10 and 154cm. You know, it's not a garbage steel at all. You can get it super sharp. It retains an edge fairly well, and I like it. I like it. I've been really happy with 150 or with AUS 8 actually. This blade is wearing a stonewash finish, and I love the blade shape of this, that clip point shape. It's got sort of a thick stock on it, and this is not sharp. You could not do fire steel on this. You could on the Endura, it's also sharp. But I like the stonewash finish. I'm happy they didn't put the black coating on there, the Teflon like they do with the Recon and stuff. That chips off and looks like garbage after a while. But yeah, AUS 8, clip point. This is the longest blade, I want to say. Let's compare it against the Endura and just have a quick look here. Just a little bit longer than the Endura. So this is a really big blade. All of these are big, but I mean, this one is especially big. Just look at the overall size of that. Pretty huge. Now, what about the handle and the ergonomics? Like I said before, they're all FRN handles. You know, one company might call it something a little different than the other one, but they're all just that sort of molded plastic handle. Nothing wrong with that at all. It's actually really cool that in the Griptilian and the Endura, you can get a lot of different colors there. And they've had like sprint runs with G10 on the Endura and that sort of thing. But I personally don't mind the FRN handles. I don't think that G10 offers a huge advantage over FRN. And it can really add a lot to the cost of the knife. So let's just take a closer look here at the handles and compare them and talk about the differences. So the Griptilian is grippy. From a distance, this almost looks like a rubber handle, or, you know, something kind of cartoonish. But when you get it in the hand, you'll feel that there is traction all over the place. There's this molded in jimping on the bottom. You got the proud liners there with a little bit of metal jimping as well. You got some traction here on the back. On the sides, there's this you know, carved out piece here that's pretty grippy. And then on the back, same thing. You got that molded in stuff and a little bit of jimping up there. It's kind of a thick handle compared to the Endura anyways. I'll just hold that up so you can see. Just, you know, maybe 20% thick or something like that. But it fills the hand very nicely. It's not too big. And I think that if you were going to be doing a lot of work, a handle like this that's a bit more hand filling is really going to make a huge difference. So yeah, that's the Griptilian. I like the handle. That might be like a weak point for some people. It is a costly knife, and when you look at that handle, some people don't like it, and that's fair. You know, if you're going to be paying $100 for a knife, which is what this costs, you know, a lot of people expect to have G10 or maybe aluminum or something like that. I don't have a huge problem with it. I kind of like the handle actually. The Endura handle is thinner by contrast. It's a little bit longer than the Griptilian, I believe, and that's not a bad thing actually at all. You got a little bit sticking out from the hand there that you could use as like an impact weapon if you needed to or something. It's also extremely grippy, and the ergonomics are, I want to say, superior in some ways. I really like on the bottom side here of the handle how there's these grooves that your palm and your fingers fit into nicely. A lot of Spyderco knives, they feel like they were made for your hand in some ways. And you can have different sizes of hands using them, and a lot of people say the same thing. It feels like it was made for me, and I don't know, it's just great ergonomics for sure. They have the Volcano grip on here, which provides a lot of traction. Some molded in jimping on the handle there that's actually not too bad at all. And then there's, of course, the jimping on the blade itself, which is sharp and functional. So when you get this in your hand and you lock it down, it's not going anywhere for sure. And another really nice feature that I'll talk about compared to the Voyager is this sort of smooth pattern here where they've got the logo. And whichever side you put the clip on, that little pinch point there when you slide it in and out of your pocket, it's not going to tear up your pockets, which is really, really nice. Okay, so the Voyager is also grippy, right? The one thing it doesn't have is, you know, actual jimping on the blade. So that's kind of a weak point, but it doesn't really have that opportunity to have a thumb ramp there like the other designs do. It kind of just goes flat across the top, so maybe that's why they didn't put it in. There is some molded in jimping here that really doesn't do anything. You can see my finger slides fairly freely on that. On the side they have this cross pattern here, which is similar to the Volcano grip. I think it's pretty good, grippy enough. But the real benefit to this handle, I would say, is the bottom side here. Just the fact that you can lock in your hand so nicely. You can even go back a little bit if you need a little bit more reach for whatever reason. You know, you could do this as well, but I personally wouldn't do that for any reason. It seems kind of unstable. But that big finger choil there is great. Again, this is one of those knives that I think is going to just feel like it was made for your hand in some ways. Obviously, it's going to be better for people with larger size hands. I guess mine are kind of medium size. But I like having something stick out the end of the handle there. You can always give somebody a whack with it if you need to. And also, when you reverse this knife and put it into different grips, which I didn't do with the others, but it's really superior for that sort of backwards, you know, stabbing grip. Pretty awesome. Love all the handles. The one thing I'll mention though on this one is that underneath the clip there, it's a pocket shredder. This clip has softened a little bit so that I can actually pry this one up ever so slightly. But this is like an iron death pocket clip, and Cold Steel puts these on a lot of their knives. A lot of people have to mod it afterwards just so it doesn't destroy all your pockets. Okay, now let's talk about the clip and the carryability of each of these different knives. I've put them all in the pockets here so you can sort of see how they're going to carry. I think that the amount of blade sticking out, or the amount of handle sticking out for the Endura, is pretty much ideal. That gives you just enough to be able to like reach in and extract it very quickly. It's deep enough for me. People are definitely going to see that there is a knife in there, if they know what they're looking for, of course. But it's a friendly looking color, not a big deal, and I personally like this over a deep carry clip, just so that I do have an easy way to just pull it out of the pocket and extract it. The Voyager buries really deep actually. For a larger knife, this carries pretty well. It is the largest of the knives for sure to carry, and it's comparable in overall size to the Endura. It's a long knife, you're going to feel it in your pocket, even though both these knives are light enough. It carries actually pretty deep. You can see that there's not a lot of that handle sticking out there, and with that black clip, black handle, people are probably not even going to notice that you have it, so it is fairly low profile. And it extracts easily enough. Like I said, that can shred your pockets. You know, you can always sand under there. Not too much, but just enough. Or you might want to bend that clip or something. But I've actually found that the Voyager works pretty good compared to the Recon. I don't believe that I had to do any modifications to that. Again, that's a huge knife, and you're going to feel it in there. The Griptilian, you know, you got enough here to extract. I like that clip, that plain black painted clip. All three of these are black painted clips, by the way, and you will notice that they start to chip after a while, but I like that over more of a flashy satin finish clip. I like the black paint. This is the Emerson style clip, and you have just about an inch or so of knife there poking out of your pocket. It's a little thicker than the Endura, so it carries about the same. It's a little shorter, a little thicker, easy to get that out. It extracts very nicely. Let's get rid of these pants and shorts here. Go back to focusing on the knives. So all three of these clips are ambidextrous, so you can switch them over to the other side. I should say actually about the Cold Steel, they include a second clip in there for left-handed carry, so it's not the same clip. The design is basically reversed, but I like that you can switch it from left to right. That makes these knives completely ambidextrous, as does the lock, which I'll get to in a minute. With the Spyderco, you can go any position you want to. You can go tip down, tip up, left or right. It's drilled for all four different positions, which is a tremendous freedom, and it allows the user to really customize that knife to their preference. I think that's a huge win for Spyderco, and they do that on a lot of their knives. The Griptilian, you can go left and right, like I said, but it's tip up only. If you're only going to choose one direction, tip up or tip down, I'm glad that they chose tip up. That's my preferred method, because when you pull it out of the pants, you got it in your hand in the right direction, you can just pop it open. A tip down, you're going to pull it out like this, then you're going to have to like switch it around. It just adds a little bit of time to the whole equation. The cold steel clip is reversible from left to right, tip up only, so it's on par with the Griptilian. Of the three clips, I have to say my favorite would be the Spyderco because of the versatility, the thinness, the classic design. It's low profile, mounted high enough. It's a good clip. My second favorite would be the Emerson from Benchmade, the Emerson style clip. Same thing, low profile, you know, mounted high enough. It's tip up, that's great, and just no funny business. You know, I like those symmetrical straight clips that are just, you know, no strangeness. The cold steel clip is better than it looks, actually. I think a lot of people might not like the look of it. It's kind of funky looking, maybe like a ninja style shape or something, but it's better than it looks, that's what I'll say. It's also a very short clip. It's extremely strong, and you may find it a little more difficult to extract from the pocket, but it's not going to be a big problem. Okay, so now let's talk about speed, deployment, and the locking mechanism. It might seem kind of strange to throw those all in there together, but I think that they're all connected. So, the fastest knife out of the bunch has to be the Griptilian. You got that thumb stud deployment. It's completely ambidextrous. There's no side that's favored one over the other. Very easy. It requires the least amount of force. It comes out fast. Super easy to open and close. I'm not a huge fan of thumb studs in general, but Benchmade does them right. It's an auto-like speed. You can adjust the pivot on all of these knives. I found that lockup in general is pretty good with all three of them. And I really like that axis lock. I find it so easy to manipulate. You know, everybody gets it. It's not like a liner lock, which tends to confuse people. They look at the knife kind of, and oh, where is it? And then you explain to them, oh, it's on the bottom. You gotta move it over. This is a very safe lock also, because you can close it without having your finger underneath like a liner lock. And it's perfectly ambidextrous. If you're a lefty or righty, same thing. You can deploy it also by just tugging back there on the axis lock and flipping it open, flipping it closed. It's almost like a ballad song or something. It feels like, anyways. It's really fun to play with, easy to use. I think it's a strong lock as well. I have batoned an axis lock very briefly, no failures. So what about the Voyager? This has to be the slowest knife in the bunch here, but not by a long shot. It's actually really fast for sort of a lockback style thumb stud knife. Again, I'm not a huge fan of the thumb studs, but these are pretty good. I'd say they're just as good as the Benchmades, maybe a little bit less, but completely ambidextrous, so lefties, righties, you're in good shape here. And because it's a long blade, I find that a bit more of a wrist flick, a bit more force is required. I do occasionally get some misfires on my deployment with a cold steel. You really have to, you know, kind of lean into it, make sure you're giving it a lot of force there, and it's going to fly open. In terms of closing, it's a little bit slower, obviously, than the axis lock. What I do is I kind of just depress this lock back here, the triad lock, and just let it rest on my pointer finger, then close it the rest of the way with my thumb. It is a big blade, it's a bit harder to get open, and it's a bit harder to close as well. I find that pressing down on that triad lock requires some substantial force, but it's worth it, you know what I mean? This triad lock is absolutely the strongest folding lock in the business. It's better than a frame lock, an axis lock, whatever, any lock you want to talk about. This is batonable. It makes the knife almost like a fixed blade. It's been proven in many videos. I've done it before, I think, in some of my videos. Check out the American Lawman review. I batoned that through some sticks. I don't think I've ever, yes I have batoned this. I don't have any footage, I don't think, of that. Maybe check my other Voyager vids. I might have something in there, but it's really tough, and it gives you that confidence. This knife right here goes in my bug out bag. I would not trust another folder in there other than a cold steel. And I love a lot of folding knives, but if I was in that survival situation where I needed a strong lock that will not fail me, absolutely, 10 times out of 10 I'm going to choose the triad lock from Cold Steel. Really impressive. That doesn't mean that the back lock is a bad design at all. I think this is a very strong knife. There's a little bit of a movement on Enduras, and I think that's a function of just how long and thin the blade is, and just there's not a lot of handle there. You can see there's like, you know, less than half an inch that it goes into the handle. So you will get a little bit of play on Enduras, but nothing really to be concerned about. If you really crank down on that pivot, it'll slow the deployment, but it'll take out a lot of that wiggle. I like to leave my pivot a little bit loose on Enduras just so the blade drops freely and it's super fast to open. Not the fastest knife, definitely not as fast as the grip, and it's not as fast as liner lock knives either. I find those are a little faster to open, but you know what? Pressing down on that that detent back there, or the dent, sorry, the void dent, I find it's a lot more comfortable actually than the triad lock. It's easier to open and close this, a little bit faster, but it's not as strong of a lock. Spyderco puts these lockbacks in a few of their designs, the Delica, the Endura, the Stretch, the Dragonfly. There's probably some other ones that I missed, like the Police, I think, and a few others. I think it's a good lock overall. I've been really happy with all the lockbacks I've had from Spyderco. A little bit of a slower design overall, but pretty fast the way that Spyderco does it. Okay, so the last thing I want to talk about is the pricing, the value, and then the options you have within each of these different designs. So let's go high value first and limited options. That pretty much encompasses the Voyager. Overall, this is a fantastic knife, and if you just want a knife that's going to work and is not going to fail you and it's strong, you know, this is what you should go for, especially if funds are limited. This costs about 55 bucks where I am, with tax, let's say 60. And I think that's exceptional value. I was hesitant to try this at first because I said, hey, what's the difference between this and a Endura? The pricing difference not that great, but the blade steel is super inferior to VG10. And that's not the case at all. AUS8, as cold steel does it, is really good actually. So I think this is high value. The strength you're going to get out of this, the cutting performance, etc., is representative of much more expensive knives. I mean, a Sebenza costs, you know, almost, you know, 8 times what this does, and this is a stronger design. Absolutely, I think cutting performance will be on par. You know, fit and finish, materials, blah blah blah. You know, a lot of people really like those high-end knives, but you're going to be hard pressed to beat the performance and the strength of this knife. With the Voyager, I believe it also comes in like a Tanto blade shape, and there may be some partially serrated ones out there. I'm not too sure. I stay away from partial serrations. But with materials, you know, the blade steel, AUS8, and the handle, the FRN, you're pretty much stuck with that. So they don't offer different colorations. I think it would be cool to do this in like a digital camo handle, maybe like a black blade or something like that. It would be cool to just like change it up and offer people some alternatives. I think that would make the blade more collectible and maybe give it more of a following like the Griptilian and the Endura have. I think that that's an important thing to consider. But yeah, so you're going to be kind of limited on variations. You can go up in size. They have like an XL, and then they also have the medium size Griptilian, which is nice. If you want to go down in size, you have the option for any of these designs here. The Endura costs about 75 bucks where I am, so let's say 85 with taxes. I've seen the price on this knife go up over the last couple of years, but that can be said for a lot of things, you know, and I don't really know what the reason for that is. It's probably fairly complicated, but whenever you choose like a more premium steel like that VG10, you are going to add cost, and also you know, the country of manufacture I think plays a role as well. So this is Japan, this is Taiwan, and that's the United States. So the cost of the country of manufacture, the blade steel, that probably plays a role. I do still think it's high value for what it is. When I bought it, it was slightly cheaper. I would actually like to collect all the Enduras. I think that there's a lot of cool variations out there. They've done sprint runs with G10. They've done you know, different versions. It's evolved through the years. I've seen an Endura 3 before, and I think it had no steel liners. Then they did the Endura 4 with a saber ground, black handle. They do a combo edge, I believe, in that as well. And then they had all these FFG versions with different color handles. And I think there's about 7 different handle colors: black, orange, purple, blue, green, and gray and brown, I think, are all of them. So I think it's so cool that they offer all those different handle colors. It really is something different than black. It adds a cool factor. it makes you want to collect them, and you can do so. You could probably buy all the Enduras for less than the cost of a Sebenza or something like that. So it is high value when you put it into that sort of perspective. I like it, you know, but like I said, it's gone up in price a little bit. Now, Benchmade Griptilian. This is over $100 to buy this knife where I am. With tax and everything put into it, probably you're looking at $110, $105. And I think that is because of Benchmade. They just set their pricing high. And that's a way to sort of assure people of their quality, you know, the premium ingredients, blah, blah, blah. I'm not a huge fan of things as the value starts to dissipate. You see that this knife competes fairly strongly with both those knives. It's not like head and shoulders above either of those knives at all. So I think that it would be a more reasonably priced knife, and the value equation would make a bit more sense if they brought that price down to maybe like 80 bucks or something like that. It would be closer to the Endura, and that's pretty much where it competes. You know, I decided to try Benchmade for the Axis lock, and I don't regret that. It's really a great knife. And there are a lot of variations for it. You can go different handle colors. You can also do different blade steels. They do S30V versions, but get ready to pay more, aka close to 150 probably with taxes and everything where I am. There is also a variation on the opening method. You can get the spider hole, which they kind of stole from Spyderco. I guess Spyderco probably, you know, had that patented, but whatever court decided, you know, you can't patent that, or who knows. But Benchmade stole that and they incorporated it into some of their knives. And those blade shapes, they do, it's a little different. It's not the drop point, it's like a sheep's foot blade. It's pretty cool, but I would not buy that just out of principle. I think that's pretty lame when you steal something like that from another company, and that's kind of like their trademark. Anyways, not a big deal. But yeah, I think this is a good knife, and it represents fairly high value. I'd say it's a great design, good materials, but the value equation is just a little bit out of whack compared to the other knives. Anyways, these are all great knives. I'm sure a lot of you have probably tried them and have your own preferences. I don't regret buying any of them, and I would recommend any of them to anyone really who's into knives. It just sort of matters how much you want to pay, what kind of lock you want, what kind of steel you want, and that's the great thing about the knife market. There's just so much competition and so much variety. There's something out there for everyone. Thanks for watching.